In the world of philately, there are plenty of stamps that have been given a name, usually associated with its origin or a particular characteristic. The penny black, the British Guiana 1 cent magenta, the inverted Jenny, and the Brazilian bullseyes are all good examples of this. But the same is true when it comes to postmarks and cancels. In the world of markophily, you'd be familiar with the Bishop's mark, the Maltese cross, the Paris star, the Brunswick star, and there's several fancy cancels out there, including the kicking mule. But did you know that there's a postmark that is named after a famous murder trial that happened in the 19th century? It was part of the evidence presented in court. So for this episode of #Philately, let's explore the famous Madeline Smith postmark and the woman that it may have saved from the gallows. On the morning of March 23, 1857, a gentleman by the name of Emile L'Angelier was found dead in his home in Glasgow, Scotland. The cause of death was arsenic poisoning. He had been seen the night before returning to his home in severe pain, and once it was determined that Mr. L'Angelier had been poisoned, a full murder investigation took place. It didn't take very long to find a number of interesting and incriminating letters in his home from a secret lover, Madeleine Smith, who quickly became the top suspect in the case and was arrested 8 days after his death. Now, Madeline certainly had a motive. She was a young 21-year-old Victorian socialite belonging to a respected upper-middle-class family. She was in a secret love affair with Emile L'Angelier, who worked as a packing clerk at a warehouse. Unknown to her parents, he would visit her at night through her bedroom window. She even promised to marry him. Just a couple of years into the secret relationship, Madeline's parents find a suitable fiancé for her, an upper-middle-class gentleman who would have been a much better fit for Madeline's social circles. So, Emile, he had to go. Madeline quickly tried to break off the relationship, but Emile, who was heartbroken, threatened to reveal all the love letters that she had sent him during their time together. This would have ruined things for Madeline. Long story short, the love letters were found in his home, and after questioning Madeline Smith, she was arrested and taken to Edinburgh for the trial. Cue the Law and Order sound. This was considered to be the trial of the century in Scotland. It generated an unbelievable level of excitement and anticipation as it was covered in all the newspapers and discussed in the taverns and tea rooms. Madeline Smith was on trial and her life was at stake. Prosecution was able to prove that Madeline Smith had the motive to kill L'Angelier. They read her love letters, and that she had the means to do so. Madeline Smith purchased arsenic from the pharmacy just several days before. She had to sign for it, although she had claimed that it was for cosmetic purposes. It also became apparent that she could have administered the poison in hot chocolate, giving Mr. L'Angelier warm cups of hot cocoa in the cold late hours when he would visit and beg for her not to leave him. All in all, however, the case was not strong enough against Madeline Smith. Even though she was widely believed to have been guilty, you couldn't directly connect her to the poisoning of Emile L'Angelier. There was no circumstantial evidence or witnesses placing the two of them together. So the prosecution relied heavily on the love letters, but there was a complication. Madeline Smith did not date her letters, and the sequencing of them was important. So the court relied on the postmark date. Of course, one of the key letters she sends has an illegible postmark. You couldn't read the date, and so you couldn't place it in the sequence. The evidence was useless. The judge even made a displeasing remark about how the postmark failed to cooperate during the case. This was an experimental postmark style used in Glasgow from February 1856 until mid-1857. It consisted of a rectangular postmark with Glasgow and date, along with a barred 159 numeral obliterator on top. 159 was of course Glasgow's post office number. In a single action, the date was applied and the stamp cancelled using this hand stamp. In May of 1857, this experimental hand stamp made way for the more standard pattern duplex stamps that were becoming common at the time. Due to the lack of circumstantial evidence, witnesses, or anything tying her to the actual murder, Madeline Smith was set free. The jury came back with a verdict of not proven, which is a Scottish verdict that is an alternative to guilty or not guilty, not proven. Basically, we can't prove you're guilty and we can't prove you're innocent. You're not proven. And many believed that for this particular case, it was We think you're guilty, we just can't prove it. Anyway, Madeleine Smith went on to live a long and full life. She moved to New York and married twice before passing away at the age of 93 in 1928. Now, as for the postmark, it was discontinued shortly after the trial, not because of the trial. It was an experimental postmark that made way for new duplex cancels straight afterwards. It was just part of the evolving world of postmarks and cancels at the time. It is important to note that during the case, however, most of the letters presented had clear, legible postmarks. It was just that key one that they tried to look at that had an illegible postmark, which was bad luck for the prosecutor. Also, it's important to note that it was later found out that the investigators who were gathering the letters from L'Angelier's home were finding some of the letters and the envelopes separate. And so they were just taking those letters and placing them into random envelopes, which means that the postmark really didn't matter at all. Regardless, the court case in 1856 had a lot of attention. It was an enormous headline in which letters and postmarks had a prominent role in proving or disproving Madeleine's guilt. And you can own an example of what this evidence looked like. Keep a lookout for covers sent from Glasgow from February 1856 to mid-1857. Some listings will actually call out the Madeleine Smith postmark or hand-stamped cover. Bonus points if the date is illegible. My October date from 1856 here is a little smudged. I think it's the 21st, but I'd like to thank one of my viewers, Tom, an English teacher in France, for reaching out to me and telling me about this fascinating philatelic story. Of course, I had to share it with you all. Now, I only focused on the details that were related to the postmarks. There's actually a lot more associated with this case. I oversimplified it, but check the description of this video. I've included a number of interesting links to additional content for you to review. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching and happy exploring.